Greetings, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Dreamscapes. Today, we have our friend Helen Cernett from Seattle, Washington. She is a sleep evangelist and host of Sleep List, reading relaxing lists to help you fall asleep. You can find her at sleeplists.com. And of course, across many podcasting platforms. Also at Sleep Lists for You on YouTube. Both of those links will be in the description below. For my part, would you kindly like, share, subscribe, tell your friends? Always need more volunteer dreamers, viewers for the game streams. 17 currently available works of historical dream literature. The most recent, The Fabric of Dreams by Catherine Taylor Craig. All this and more at benjaminthe.dreamwizard.com, including downloadable MP3 versions of this very podcast and, of course, on other podcasting websites. And if you would head on over to benjaminthe.dreamwizard.locals.com, attached to my Rumble account, trying to build a community there, and hopefully that'll be the primary source of folks who are, fans of the show. And let's get the dreamers there first. Let's feature the audience. And that way we can all have fun together. So that's enough shilling out of me. Back to Helen. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your time.
For having me. I'm so excited to be here. I know it's bright and early. But...
a little early for me. But I'm getting up to speed. I'm in that like a semi in low gear here, trying to catch up. The first thing I said when you popped on screen to myself was, "That's an awesome recording closet, a little studio there with the soundproofing on the walls." I love that.
It is classically a la Harry Potter underneath the stairs. It's I've got my little acoustic tiles. It's just wide enough to fit like my chair, my little tiny IKEA desk, and we've got the curtains in the back to help keep sound out, and it's small enough in here that if I talk enough, I stay warm.
That's what I was going to say too. Is I bet it's toasty warm in there. It's probably not so easy to record things in the summer.
It's not too bad because it's in my garage actually, so it's under my stairs but in my garage. So it's cool in the summer and I can keep it warm enough in the winter. I mean, I wear cozy socks in the winter time, and in the summer, shorts. But yeah,
me too. Well, we're both broadcasting from our garage. This is the Wizard Cave is just my garage out back. So
nice. I
love it. Yeah, it's the perfect. Well, I'm so glad I have this space for it too. I've been, I don't know, tinkering with the idea of moving the studio back into the house, but I don't know. I kind of like it here. I don't know. It's a project for another day.
I do like having mine a little bit separated out. And I actually have a light upstairs that says I'm on air or I'm recording.
Yep.
so that people know that's where you find me. If the light's on, I'm down here.
Yep, for sure. I've just got windows in here and my wife just pokes her head and going, "Oh, he's talking to somebody." Okay. I try and keep her posted, but you never know. So what are sleep lists, and is it related to ASMR or completely separate? What would you say about all that?
It's interesting. I don't record to do ASMR, but I think it is related. I don't whisper. It is just me speaking. And I use a kind of lulling melodic voice. It's the same voice that I would use to help my kiddo go to sleep when I tell her stories at night. And I record a list. I usually do a little introduction, just tiny, and then get to the list, and I record the list. It's usually anywhere between 50 and 1,000 entries, depending upon what the topic is. So they're all different lengths, and you can pick the length that works for you. You can pick the topic that works for you. Some of them are more historical. Some of them are, one is just a whole bunch of colors of beige paint, names for beige paint. So that's pretty boring. A lot of people fall asleep pretty fast. Other people are really interested in factual stuff. So, we've got presidents and their vice presidents of the United States. We've got countries all over the world, states and their capitals. The most recent one is a list of cookbooks. So
very cool. So how many episodes or lists have you recorded so far?
I think we've got about 20 some right now.
Okay, so it's kind of just getting off the ground. How long does it take you to say record a short list of not 1,000 things, but 50, 100?
Yeah, the 1,000 one took me a long time. That was 1,000 baby names.
Mm.
I won't do one that long for a while.
And how do you organize that? Okay, let's start with that one just because it's fascinating to me. Like my brain goes, okay, how would I even present that? You just go alphabetical?
Yeah. So for that one, the source had ranked them. It was predictions for the top 500 baby names, both male and female, for 2024.
Okay.
And so they had already ranked them, and I just combined the list so that I didn't have to note gender, because I felt like a lot of the names worked well for either gender. Plus, not everyone fits on the binary. So I just put them in essentially the order that they had put them in terms of what they thought the probability was of that being a popular name.
Very cool. And there's almost no shortage of lists out there of so many kinds. You could probably get to 1,000 podcasts or episodes, so to speak. How do you define your... This is my autistic brain going like, how would I categorize this type of thing? Yeah. It's not exactly a podcast. You're not talking. It is, but it isn't in a way. It's like it's a record. It's almost like an audiobook in a way, but it's not either. Yeah.
It's also not a podcast in the sense of like, there's no narrative per se, really. I mean, I guess one could say that like when I did the presidents of the United States and their vice presidents in chronological order, that there is a bit of a narrative to that, but it certainly wasn't anything that was going to keep anybody awake. There were no plot points.
Yeah. It's as you say, it's not that discussion. It's not even a monologue exactly. I mean, it is just reading a list. It's a recitation. Yeah, recitation is great. That's great. It almost defies description of what exactly it is. It is its own category, list reading, period.
And there are sleep podcasts. I developed it because...
Oh, we had just a momentary freeze. I don't know if I'm frozen, and if you can hear me, we'll just give it a moment to come back.
I didn't find anything that really worked sleep, and so I tried sleep meditations. I tried white noise, green noise, brown noise, purple noise, literally all the colors of noise. I tried just sort of meditation music tracks, like soundtracks. Those weren't distracting enough. So I really needed something that would get me outside of my own head, but also calm me down. And my first list was just me counting to 500, because that's kind of what I wanted, was somebody to just count to me in a relaxing way. And then that's from there, that's the classic one, counting sheep. Episodes.
1 sheep, 2 sheep, and you visualize it. Yeah. I've actually tried that in the past too. I've had my own issues with sleep. I did want to say just briefly, you had a moment where you froze, and then but I think we caught most of what you were saying when you came back. And then just so you know, if you listen back to this and you're like, oh, what happened there? Why didn't he tell me? So I don't think we lost anything. But one thing you said was the idea of getting out of your head. I've got that too. I have to listen to not music and not watching TV or anything, of course, but conversation, dialogue, verbal content. That's my specific thing. So I put on like just a 24/7 comedy radio channel. I listen to stand up, and that works for me. I put it on real low, and then I can kind of, because if my mind's busy, it's not shutting down. And that's, you're nodding along like that. And I think that's a very common experience for a lot of people. Busy mind when you're trying to lay down. And, people have done a lot of things of like, working on meditation or, going to a doctor to get sleep medication, which should be, in my opinion, reserved for pretty extreme cases. There's probably a lot of things you can do. I don't know if you froze again. I think you did.
Oh no, I lost the connection.
Yeah, it's being screwy today. You're back on my screen. So.
And I'm good now. I just missed what you said. I'm so sorry.
Right? We're gonna have some technical difficulties today. That's just fine. We're gonna roll with it. I'm not even cutting any of it out. Fuck it. I was just saying, yeah, that idea of there's a lot of different ways to, maybe not a lot, but a handful of different ways to approach the problem of sleep. And, the last thing I was saying was I would probably reserve medication for like way down the list. Some people need it. And if you need it, so be it. But it's one of those things like you wouldn't jump to that first. You go, have you tried X, Y, and Z? And one of the things you should definitely try is this kind of, getting out of your head by listening to something. And some people try one thing. They try, I tried those, Hertz things where it just plays like, synth music or something. And it's very slow and flowy. Well, that didn't work. So they give up. I'm like, no, there's a bunch of other stuff you can try in that same genre, and maybe music works best for you and maybe verbal content works better, but that's why I'll listen to podcasts. And, well, I'll just stop right there. I could ramble for a long time too. I don't know if you have more things to say. Oh, now you're muted. Now I can't hear you. It's what is happening?
Your mic. Let me see if I can
move to now. I can hear you.
Yeah, I can't hear your mic, so let me.
Oh shit!
I'm so sorry. This is terrible. I feel so unprofessional.
It's okay. This happens all the time. That's why I tell folks.
There we go.
Oh,
gotcha.
Now you can hear me. Wonderful.
Yes.
Now I am hearing myself a little bit in the background. It's coming back to me.
Okay, so you're getting a feedback loop. All right, we're going to put the headphones on again and see if they pick up now.
I hope so. Can you hear me? Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
I'm hearing you.
Okay. Now.
Now I just got to shut off whatever some page showed up and then ended up making me. There we go.
Oh, I
suddenly was hearing YouTube.
Oh boy, are you using Discord on a browser?
No, I've got the app. I've got the app.
Okay, yeah. Good deal. I forgot to mention that before too. You seemed familiar with it, and most people come in and announce, "I've never used this before." And then I walk them through and say, "Okay, make sure you get the app." And because the audio video stuff is like significantly more common when using the web-based version of it. It's just not dialed in for that. So no, and don't worry about the technical difficulty stuff. I've had much more significant problems, and it just is what it is. And I think it's actually got its own kind of charm of like, I don't even think I'm going to edit any of this stuff out. If you disappeared for like a half an hour, I'm not going to have a half an hour dead air. I'll cut that out. But like little tiny glitches, I think it's got its own charm to it. And people are like, oh, these are just real people having a real conversation. Look, it's not, it is very real.
It's very real.
For sure.
I'm not trying, but it's funny because we were doing fine. Everything was good when we were doing a little pre-show and making sure all the sound checks were good. We were great, and now
all of a sudden, yep, that is the way.
But I think what you were saying is there are a lot of things available, and you have to find the one that works for you.
Mm-hmm. For sure, yeah.
And that was just that's my whole thing. Is I don't want anyone to have to use a sleep tool, but if they do have to use a sleep tool, I want mine to be available in the mix of options that are available.
Yeah, and I would highly recommend that too, because what is it like? How does it work for me? Music keeps me awake because I anticipate the repetition. So specifically, putting on music with melody and a bridge and a chorus and lyrics, that actually stimulates my mind and keeps me awake. So you're just smiling.
Chord progression.
Yeah. So you found the same thing of like music doesn't work for you?
Music alone doesn't work for me, and even if it's not Western music. So even if I tune into Eastern music, which of course uses different systems of structure, it's not distracting enough. It doesn't hold my attention enough to like keep me outside of my head. So for me, it's really just like, is what's going on outside enough to hold my attention and keep my thoughts from spiraling,
Hmm.
but also not interesting enough for me to want to know what's happening. So if it's a story or
Yeah.
a conversation, I want to know what's going on. If it's just a list, it's not as critical for me to know what's going on. It's like I kind of understand what the next thing might be. It's going to be, another name of a country or another name of a cookbook or another shade of beige. I mean, they all sound the same after a while. But it's enough interruption of my own thoughts that it
Mm.
helps me shut down my brain. It's like an off switch.
Yeah, definitely. And I have found in dialing in my own, like, how do I facilitate my own sleep hygiene, as they say. Um, I have enjoyed those delta hertz channels, but some of them, and it's interesting too because I've experimented with a variety of different kinds. For me, I had to rule out anything that was percussive, and I don't mean heavy drums like driving beat, but piano or
Hmm.
flute, things that have a shrieky tone or things that have that percussive guitar plucking strings, even though it's very soft music and it's very gentle and it's very slow. It something about that, striking the strings or plucking the strings or the shriekiness of a flute, not doesn't work for me. So I had to go with, that's why I kind of like the synthy hertz stuff because it just kind of flows through different stuff. There's no hard percussive changes and whatnot. So even if you pick a certain, well, I tried one delta hertz channel and I didn't like it. Well, there's like 7,000 of them out there. You could try another one. I mean, not to be recommending people away from you. They should definitely go and try your lists. But I'd say try that first, just for the sheer novelty of it. I don't think anyone's doing anything else like what you're doing. Did you do that kind of market research a little bit and look around? Like, is anyone just reading lists for sleep? Um,
Well, I mean, that's what I wanted. I wanted someone listening to me, and I was like, someone's has to have done this. At least the numbers, right? Like, even if you're just trying to teach people how to speak English, someone has to have counted to 500, and I could not find it. So I was, so I did a lot of market research, which was just really me trying to find the podcast so I didn't have to make it, and then I couldn't find what I wanted, and so I had to make it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that was kind of similar to what I'm doing with the dream thing of like, surely there's got to be someone out there who was who had the same idea I did before me. Like I'm very reluctant to believe I'm the first one to ever think of anything,
Right.
because so many people have always have lived, and there's so many people who are smarter, more creative, etc. It's more driven to create something new. And I'm just like stumbled into this thing, and I went looking, and there was a lot of people. Well, there's a lot of videos about what does it mean if you dream about trees. Like, well, okay. First of all, I don't think that has a lot of validity because what does it mean when you dream about trees? What tree? Where was the tree? What was your interaction with the tree? It's all of that modifies the connection you have with the tree. And after a while, it's like, it's not even about the tree. The tree is meaningless in some ways. And so the tree can't have one meaning for every person. There were a lot of videos or channels out there that are more on the, what I lovingly call the spooky woo side of things, where
Hmm.
they're looking more into out of body experiences or astral travel, um, psychic connections, really, the voice of the spirits or astrology connected to your dreams. And so I'm like, well, I'm not really on that side of things. I'm more on the scientific. So I started looking, and there's videos about, brain research and how it might connect to different stuff, but not a lot about dreams. And literally nobody doing just like straight up psychological dream interpretation like this. I couldn't find a single channel where they did exactly what I do, just interview people. So I may actually be kind of one of the first. I wonder if I'll inspire some copycats in a way. Other people will go, "Hey, I could do this," and I'm like, "Go for it." It's
Yeah.
and I would hope people do this what I do for themselves in their own life as well, and not rely on me. So anyway, all this was supposed to be about you and your creative process and coming up with. So I think both of us had a similar experience though of like looking for this kind of content and going, no, really, nobody's doing this. I guess I
Yeah.
will. So
Yeah, there's such a low barrier to entry. I figure if no one else is doing it, then really it must be novel enough that I should be doing it. And for me, it became a bit of a mission. Like I found that the more I paid attention to my sleep hygiene, the better I felt. mentally first, like just my mental and emotional well-being, and then the more capable I was to integrate better diet and exercise
Mhm.
to support that. So the whole system of my wellness and my health is really anchored in trying to be very, very much honoring and trying to honor very much my sleep hygiene. And that's
Mhm.
something that I didn't do for a long time. I was of the mindset that sleep wasn't as important, that you had to sleep, but it kind of got in the way of everything else.
Yeah,
And now I'm in the mindset of my sleep actually supports all of the other things that I want to do in my life. And it's how I get the ability and the energy and the collectiveness and the fortitude to do everything else that I want to do in my
for
life.
sure. Yeah, I don't think many people. Rephrase that. I think too many people have exactly the perspective you said earlier, is that, well, sleep is something we just grudgingly have to do, that it's not,
Mm-hmm.
and that it gets in the way. Like, oh, if there were only more hours in the day, if only if I could get by on less sleep, I would have more time to do the things I want to do or need to get done. Um, and there's what I want to validate that in some ways, because yeah, it's like a lot of us would rather not have to stop what we're doing because we're having fun or because it's important, but really it's not optional. Is
No.
what I've come around to. You can't just you short yourself on sleep or go without completely. Like they did some famous studies of, what was it? It was one guy. He was a radio host, and he was just running a contest of like, I'm gonna do a stunt. I'm gonna stay awake for a week. And after about 3 or 4 days, he started sounding like he had dementia, and then eventually actively hallucinating and saying some pretty crazy stuff. And they realized, oh, sleep is necessary for brain health too. You just cannot function without shutting down for a little bit and letting things process in the background. And that's, I mean, basically that's what we're doing when we're dreaming. And the theories that I've come up with, and people hear me talk about this probably too much, but the way I regard dreams is more a more raw look at what our actual thought process is, what it actually looks like to have thoughts in our head that are not then filtered through conscious attention and kind of shoehorned into specific words of a descriptive style. We translate a lot of our images and emotions and what we're experiencing internally into these words that are insufficient to actually describe what it is, but close enough to get the idea across to somebody else. So my saying is that the lungs breathe, the heart beats, and the brain thinks, and it never stops. Doesn't stop. Dreaming is not different than. Come on, get comfy. Dreaming is not a different thing than thinking. It is the raw act of thinking itself, and without the ability to kind of pause and reflect, to stop and think in a way, to turn off the. It's like I'm trying to think of an analogy too. Like the idea of a dam came to mind of like, but that's not probably not right. It's more like it's like filling a bucket that's got a little hole in the bottom. You can fill it up with all the day's experiences just about up to the top, and then it's going to take a little while to drain before you can pour more on top of it. It's a horrible analogy, but that's that idea of anything else you pour on top of it after it's full just spills over. You're not holding on to things. You're not understanding things. You're not processing your experiences at all. So that's all got to take place when we power down for a period of time. Then another thing came to mind too, just while I'm rambling anyway. The idea of a wheel with spokes and like sleep hygiene, nutrition and shelter and love and all these different things that holistically make this wagon wheel in a way. You take out one of those spokes and the wheel is no longer stable, sturdy. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
break or it's going to wobble as it rolls. So that idea came to mind, but I'll shut up for a second. Go throw it back to you.
It's absolutely true. I should have realized it more, but when I think back on, I was an international studies major in
Mm,
college, and one of the things that we did is we watched a model diplomatic encounter, right? So it was an intense situation, like a global, like there was essentially a global warm up, and it was more or less trying to negotiate diplomatically out of a World War III. That was the sort of setup for the simulation. And they ran the simulation with the actors. The actors isn't the right word because that makes it sound like there was a script. It was improvised. It was people had their roles. They were experts. Some of them were diplomats in different, settings. So it was a really interesting setup. But they ran it once where they forced the participants to stay awake. And then because, with the idea being that like, oh, well, time is of the essence and we have to get this done or else, war is going to break out. And then it ran the simulation again where the participants got their rest. And it was just like, it wasn't even full rest, but it wasn't like 6 hours. It was like, we're going to take a 4-hour break and sleep. Like it was even shorter than it should have been for what we now know as good sleep hygiene. But ultimately, the point is that those who slept were able to prevent war, and those who didn't, war broke out.
Wow. Yeah. No, it's such a big deal. And then, I also tell people too, is that like when you take that time to pause and reflect and process, that is usually where solutions occur. It's in that space. You have to make the space where a solution can appear. Otherwise, if there's no space, you've got it completely closed off. It's nothing but receiving new information constantly. There's just no space for solutions to appear. So I mean, I very literally tell people to sleep on it. In terms of like, if you don't know what to do, literally go to bed and let your brain process. And I can no longer count the number of times I've woken up in the morning with an answer to a problem that I don't remember a dream even happening, but now I know exactly what to do. I know what it is. I know how to fix it. And just giving myself that time, and no amount of concentration and effort and dedication and forcing myself to really pay attention was getting the job done. I had to just stop, step away. That's why sometimes they'll say, like, if you're stuck with a problem, say on a work, and really, actually, you can't just, I'm going to go home and sleep and I'll come back tomorrow and figure it out. Sometimes you got to stick around and try and figure it out. Take a break, go for a walk, get out of that environment where you're stuck, and just physically remove yourself. And that can also have a really big, I think all these concepts are related. Yeah. The ability to take things in and then actually have the time and the space to process them. And we do, we know that our brains can't put things into long-term memory until we sleep. So pretty much everything that you do in a day lives in short-term memory. And it's kind of neat. It's like within the last 5-10 years, there's been studies that have confirmed this now. So it's a super, I guess, on the cusp area of science. But anyway, I think it's really cool that now we know, like, everything lives in short-term memory. It's not even just like your 15-minute short-term memory. Even like, you can remember what you had for breakfast maybe, or like, something, when you first woke up at the end of the day. But essentially, until you go to sleep, your brain doesn't have the capacity to file that all away in a system that it can access later. Yeah, for sure. And it's a fantastic analogy that to the function of a computer. It's like, short-term memory is kind of like RAM, and then long-term memory is your hard drive. And if your RAM is maxed out, it is all tied up doing so, you can't start another program, or you can't transfer files. Like try and run your video editor. Like, this is for me, but video editor at the same time you're trying to transfer large files over to another disk. And both of them run super slow because it's trying to multitask and do that all at the same time. And it's just out of bandwidth. It just can't do it. Or try and download 2 movies at the same time versus 1. You're going to see it's significantly slower. It's like very much, simplifying and focusing on one task at a time and allowing that space for things to become encoded. Yeah, that's interesting too. The idea that we can very often remember what we had for breakfast today, but maybe not yesterday, and certainly not a week ago. There's interesting things like that where it's like some things are not important enough to remember. But it's a fun fact too, is like everything we've ever done, seen, felt, experienced, it's all in our subconscious. So what you're describing, and I'm glad that this, I need to catch up on current research too, but I mean, it fits with the thing of like, it's not that data isn't there. It's that we don't index it properly. We don't
Right.
connect it to things we can then, so we know where to find it. But that's what seems to happen in dreams is we stumble upon these trees, not trees, but I'm thinking of the branching logic tree type of tree or flow chart type of tree, whatever. Through connected ideas, we accidentally find our way back to things that didn't get indexed in a way that makes it easy to bring back to mind at will. So that seems to be what's happening in the dream state, is that we're letting go of attention and following these chains of association that get to pretty things that are actually significant to us, like to current problems we're having. And then, we relate it to those past experiences that we, couldn't have found intentionally if we wanted to.
Do you want to hear the dream that I brought for you to share?
That is actually perfect.
It's a good transition.
I think it is. Yeah.
I wrote two down. I have kind of like a short one, so let's start there because I think that one's kind of fun, and the other one's I don't know. The other one seems to make even less sense. Neither of them make a ton of sense, but it's
dreams have their own logic. It's absolutely true.
Benjamin the Dream Wizard wants to help you pierce the veil of night and shine the light of understanding upon the mystery of dreams. Every episode of his Dreamscapes program features real dreamers gifted with rare insight into their nocturnal visions. New Dreamscapes episodes appear every week on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, and other video hosting platforms, as well as free audiobooks exploring the psychological principles which inform our dream experience, and much, much more. To join the wizard as a guest, reach out across more than a dozen social media platforms and through the contact page at benjaminthedreamwizard.com, where you will also find the wizard's growing catalog of historical dream literature available on Amazon, documenting the wisdom and wonder of exploration into the world of dreams over the past 2,000 years. That's Benjamin the Dream Wizard on YouTube and at benjaminthedreamwizard.com.
So I have a husband, and I dreamt that he put a toaster oven. And I feel it's important that you know that we don't actually own a toaster oven. I've never owned a toaster oven. But he put the toaster oven into the microwave oven. And before it completely exploded, I have very vivid memory in the dream of watching the blue digital temperature display on the toaster oven inside of the microwave. The door is closed on the microwave. You can see through the microwave window. I have an image of that just heating up and blinking, like that blue image, and watching the temperature rise. And I recall looking at it through the door and through flames that were happening inside of the microwave. Then there was an explosion, of course. And I don't really remember anything else that happened, but I do remember feeling like, gosh, that was a really odd choice for my husband to make in terms of putting the toaster oven in the microwave. And I don't really know why I didn't stop him or wasn't really able to do anything about it, but I also wasn't upset about it. I just was like, that was odd.
Okay.
So that's my first dream. A little bit strange.
Yeah.
Especially because I'm the type of person who would be very angry about the microwave having exploded. Like in real life, I would my daughter not long ago in real life, bless her heart, she's a tween. She's learning how to fend for herself. She was making herself some ramen and she forgot to put the water into the ramen container and she burned the ramen in the microwave. And I was upset about that. The microwave still works, but it stinks. So we had to go through a whole cleaning process and stuff. So, and I was pretty annoyed. I mean, I tried to hide it, but I was not very good at it. I wear my emotions on my sleeves. So my daughter was just like, why are you so mad at me? I was like, I'm sorry. I know it's not fair. But anyway. So
you're just having strong feels.
Yeah, the microwave definitely has been, the dream came after the microwave incident in real life. So maybe that's part of why it was all kind of in my head. But I I woke up and I was just like, that was such a strange choice that you made, Matt. Like, why did you do that, husband of mine? I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
understand.
for sure. And that is, it's great that you mentioned this. So one of my failings is being on the autistic side of things. I'm more focused on what did you see? What did you think? What was the dynamics going on in a situation? I don't often ask about emotions. So I always appreciate it when people volunteer. And you would think this would make me upset, but it didn't. It was more of a dispassionate analysis of the oddity of the situation. So yeah. And I think emotional content is as significant as thoughts, logical thoughts, and visuals and auditory experiences in dreams. So it's good. It's always good when people volunteer that.
I don't remember any auditory experiences from it.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Most, and that's just on a tangent. Why not? Most people do have strong visuals in dreams. Unless they're blind, then they tend to have more auditory and tactile sensations. But sighted persons, it's almost always visual. Next is auditory, and like smelling, tasting, or touching things almost never gets mentioned. It's very rare. Very interesting circumstance that we're so
tuned
much
into that primary sense.
visual creatures. Yeah, in that way. Okay, so it is a very short one, and I've made more with less. So
well, we can go to the longer one too, but I thought I'd start you out with that one because that one was
sure.
just very like,
yeah, we might.
What a strange thing.
Why not? And there might be more there than we think. So you were definitely in your kitchen of your current house. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was visibly your specific microwave?
It was not specifically my microwave, but it wasn't very different from my microwave. I don't think. It was I mean, I don't own a toaster oven, and I can't imagine. I mean, I have a fairly large microwave. It fits over the stove, and it was definitely above the stove. Like that's what I was looking at. It maybe was like, I don't know. I'm not a tall person. I could see really well into the microwave, so like maybe it was somehow a little bit lower. Like I just had a better perspective on it than I do in my actual house.
Okay.
But the toaster oven piece was interesting to me. I've kind of always wanted a toaster oven. We don't have one. And we've never had one. And it's one of those things where it's like, I mean, the only time I ever had one is when I rented a place with friends and they had a toaster oven. It was great to use. But I've never found it to be like a necessary piece of equipment in my kitchen. I have the room or the space or whatever. But it was weird to me that the toaster oven, which was kind of a normal toaster oven, fit. So like there was definitely a bit of a TARDIS thing going on where the microwave somehow could handle the toaster oven being completely put into it and the door closing. Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad you volunteered that too. I mean, it's always great when people like let their own associations flow around the iconography in the dream. So we're looking at the toaster oven specifically. You said two things, and I think they're both relevant. Is that you've always wanted one, but it was wouldn't it be nice to have that? Am I really going to use it? I don't know. I go through that all the time. It's a very common human experience of like, wouldn't it be neat? I think my wife and I are going to get a rice cooker because we've always wanted one. And how have we made rice in the past? In the microwave. And it works just fine. Do we really need one? No. Do we want one? Yeah. Are we going to get one? Probably. And it doesn't have to be some $200, fancy schmancy thing. Like, I think I ordered one on Amazon and it was like $25, like a Black & Decker. It's cheap, bottom, just to test it out. Would we actually use this thing? Well, that actually got, it never arrived during the Portland ice storm. Nope, no surprise. And then it got sent back and refunded. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm buying a different one. So, and actually after I ordered it, I talked to my wife and she said, I had some ideas about a brand I would like to get with certain functionality. I'm like, I already ordered one. Well, it got sent back. So like small miracles in terms of synchronicity or whatever. Now we're going to get the one that she was looking at. So long story short. Okay. So that was one element of it. This idea of, and I like to expand. In some ways it's expanding. Some ways it's focusing, but teasing out these conceptual themes that go with this stuff. So very often it's not about a quote unquote toaster oven. It's going to be about what that item represents or thoughts you've had about, so the category of thoughts that apply to that kind of thing in a lot of ways. So that's what we got going on with that is like, okay, so this could be a stand-in for something that's like a project or a tool or an experience that perhaps I want, but haven't been able to fit into my life, or I'm unsure whether it's necessary. So it could be along those lines of things that are daydreams in a way, like in the sense of fanciful whims of, wouldn't it be nice? Yeah, who has time, but it's nice to think about, wouldn't it be nice? Okay. So we got that element of it. The other one is just, you're like, oh, and I haven't had contact or experience with a toaster since the house I rented with some friends, and they had one. So there's also that layer of, okay, now we have items connected to this group of friends, to the concept of renting a house, to the concept of other people sharing things that they have with you that you have a benefit from. So all of these things are like connected to toaster oven. So we start kind of teasing out those little threads. And we don't have to go anywhere with any of that stuff. We can just kind of sit on it and say, okay, let's see if that inspires some thoughts again later down. Here he goes. Don't walk on the keyboard, buddy. Bye, Peanut. He's going to go run around. Let's hope he doesn't start barking. Okay. So the first thing you experience as the beginning of the dream, so to speak, is the toaster is already in the microwave.
No, my husband put it there.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
my husband grabbed it and put it in the microwave. Like I watched him put it in the microwave.
Okay. Interesting. Good. No, that's significant too. So did anything else happen before that? Did you physically walk into the kitchen, or you just appear? No, I'm observing the scene. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just there.
And did he say or do anything as he was doing that, or before he did it? Did he give
No. It's sort of like, I don't know. Have you ever been like, maybe you have someone, like, I think you mentioned you have a wife, like, so somebody that you know really well, and sometimes they're just sort of doing something almost on autopilot, or like, and you're like, but it's not quite right. It's like when you put your purse in the refrigerator, or like,
yeah,
like it was that sort of like, clearly it seemed like possibly he intended something else, but also it seemed like a choice. Like I said, at the end, I was like, well, that was an interesting choice. Like, didn't that create something for us to deal with now? But at the beginning, it was sort of like just watching your partner go through the motions of something, but it be wrong, like putting orange juice in your coffee. It just like something's not right, but not really being able to stop it.
Yeah. And also it seems like at that moment you didn't have the emotional content of, anger at something stupid happening in front of you. You didn't have a fear, this is going to start a house fire, what the fuck. There was just at that moment for you, just like a neutral observation of what was occurring.
Clear role of the observer. Like if you're talking about like meditation and that idea of the observer when you're meditating, it was very much that. It was like, okay, I'm watching this thing happen and it's happening.
Yeah. So we've got even in that concept, we could tease out one thread is the possibility that you have had other experiences in your life where you've watched your husband do something that didn't make sense to you and didn't actually turn out to be a good idea. And so the idea of watching him make a mistake could be its own encapsulated concept. And I think we've all had that experience too of like, honestly, because I love her and because I think it's not safe, I tell her not to go out after dark. Just don't go out in the daylight. And she does anyway. And so I worry about her and I think she's making a mistake, but what are you going to do? It's one of those things where it's like, I can't change how I feel about it, and I'm not going to lock the door so she can't leave the house. That's not happening.
Right. This is not the hill to die on.
No, but I'm like, this is a mistake. I wish you wouldn't. So there's one. Okay. But there's also, so that could be specifically tied to your husband. And this is all like sub concepts. It could also just be the concept of watching someone close to you make a mistake that you're observing. So it may not be like directly related to him, but he could be a stand-in for, okay, you imagine it's someone you care about, that you're intimate with, but perhaps that could be friendships and other different things. And it's definitely related, as I'm glad you volunteered earlier too, to this idea of, well, you just kind of watched your daughter make a similar mistake. So it's not surprising you would do that. And then maybe sometimes our brain does this too, of like, we don't want to be, okay, let's say maybe you were, and I think you did say something like this, a little bit on the side of irrationally upset about it. And she's like, God, Mom, you're really giving me the business. So in your brain, you might feel bad about how much you might have overreacted a little bit. So instead of her in the dream, you put your husband in, because he's not gonna, there's a different dynamic there where you don't have to feel bad about having feelings towards him as much as you felt bad about that. So we can have these stand-in situations.
Yeah. And with my daughter, I didn't watch her do it, because if I had actually watched her, I would have stopped it.
Yeah.
But I wasn't, she was making lunch for herself, like, and alone in the kitchen. So it wasn't, there was no one there to help stop her from making that mistake.
Yeah. And that's it. That's interesting too. So in this instance, you put yourself present and inactive, like just witnessing the mistake happen anyway, of like, so there's an interesting thing of like, well, how would I respond? Sometimes a thought experiment style, like, would I just watch this thing happen? Well, let's imagine I did. Let's imagine I just let it be what it is and see what happens. Yeah, that's possible too.
Well, and I have a lot of trust for my husband and the decisions that he makes. I mean, he's, he trusts me as well, but there are a lot of times where he's the type of person who thinks through a lot of scenarios really quickly in his head and understands sort of the strategy and the concepts and the potential outcomes. Which means he's not as much of a live in the moment kind of guy, but it also means that, like, when he does something, it's generally for a reason.
That's kind of the dynamic my wife and I have too. Like, she's the spontaneous one. I'm the meticulous planner. If she doesn't give me 24 hours notice that we need to go somewhere, I'm not very happy about it. I need to know. I need to plan. What time are we leaving? We are not on time. What's happening?
No. I learned long ago that surprises and my husband do not go together. Like, don't surprise the man. It's not a recipe for a happy day. Don't do it.
That's it. Not with an errand and not with a birthday party. Don't you dare.
No. Like, when we were dirt poor in college, we started dating, and he was in an apartment, and the the smoke alarm was beeping. And he has like now, 20 some years later, he has like an it's not irrational, but it is a very strong reaction to smoke detectors. He hates that they beep when the battery's dead. Like, he's like wishes that there was a better way to do it. And anyway.
Oh yeah.
But I happened to be out and about, and I saw, the batteries, those little, like, I saw, like, they happen to have, like, the store I was at happened to have, the little batteries that you put in whatever those square rectangle batteries are.
Yeah, I think 9 volt, something like that.
Yeah. So, but instead of just like getting it for him and like, giving it to him in like the CVS bag or whatever, the drugstore bag, I, took the battery out and I made a little paper box for it. And like, I put a little heart on it. And like, I did this like really cute thing. Cause like, it's like a $2 battery or whatever. But I was like, oh, here's this. And then I like handed him this present and he was like, I hate it.
Oh.
Like, one, it was a surprise. I wasn't planning on getting you anything. 2, you don't know this, but I have a whole thing with gift trauma, and I don't like getting gifts that I don't know what they are. 3, I can take care of my own batteries if I need to. Like, I don't want you to think that I depend on other people or that, like, I need you to mother me or whatever. Like, you said this whole thing, and I was like,
wow.
Okay, noted. We're not surprising you with fun little gifts. He's like, it was very sweet. I appreciate that you did sweet things. Don't do that again.
Yeah, that's what I make sure to say that too. Of like, I appreciate the thought. I accept the sentiment in the spirit in which it was intended. Yes, please never again. That's
Exactly.
well, that's good too. So we've got another, and it's fantastic volunteering, these associations that just pop up exactly like that. This idea that you've got someone who in real life is very thoughtful, meticulous, makes good decisions because they're not impulsive. And here you're having a representation of them doing something very specifically that's a bad idea that they, in real life, they would absolutely know you don't do this. So you're given this very stark example of someone you might rely on to be the good decision maker more consistently, more meticulously, doing something in front of you and watching them fail to fulfill that purpose. So sometimes in our life, let's say we rely on someone to be our emotional rock, and man, anytime we're in trouble, we go to them and they're always there for us, and they always make us feel better, and they don't spaz out. They're the rock. And sometimes we imagine, what if I go to that person when I need them and they're spazzing? They're having a rare moment of, what do I do? And right. It's not even like you're not judging that person as, I think they're going to fail me someday. You're not looking at that as likely. You're not, theorizing this is, you don't have a reason to believe that's going to happen. But it's like, okay, what would I do if I can't get my needs met by this person in a way that I've come to rely on? Did you have a thought there?
Yeah, no, I think that's interesting because I can see myself having that sort of thought experiment. I am like way more insecure than he is as well. So like, I just feel like I can see that being a thing where it's like, oh, of course, like what if this happens? But the thing that was really interesting was that, like you said, I was the observer. There wasn't a lot of like fear or concern or anger. It was just like, oh, that was interesting. Like, let's not make those decisions again at the end of the whole process. So like, I mean, it very well could have just been my brain doing a thought experiment, and at the end just kind of being like, yeah, that's probably not going to happen. And like, you're okay. Like if this is how extreme things have to get for you to imagine a scenario, then like, yeah, you're fine.
And that might be that might be exactly it too. Is like you run yourself through these thought experiments to get to the end to find out what you think or feel about the experience as imagined. And it seems like what you showed yourself was, I would actually be okay. I mean, literally this is, and you made it such a catastrophic thing of like, you put metal in the microwave, it fries the microwave, it fries whatever's in the microwave. It can start a house fire. This could be actually very, very bad. You had this wasn't a gas leak and striking a match, explode the house bad, but something, you made it serious enough that's okay. Let me consider this as a serious mistake. How would I deal with it? And you got to the end of the thought experiment and said, I think I'd be okay. I think I can handle this. I think I wouldn't freak out either. And I would, even have that kind of a wry smirk of like, well, that was strange. What an odd choice. Yeah. I think that's it. Yeah. I mean, if we're satisfied with that understanding of it, it's just you looking at like, how much do I really need to rely on someone who, it's good to rely on them, and I'm glad they're there. And I'm very happy that that's who they are in our relationship. But if they weren't, would I still be okay? And you're like, yeah, I think I would.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and he's like, it definitely would be, I mean, it's interesting the different iconography that you mentioned, because it's like, oh, the microwave, and there had been a microwave incident recently, and like the toaster oven, and like I kind of always wanted a toaster oven. So there's this thing that I think is precious, or that I might want or desire, and he's like putting it in the microwave and like exploding it or whatever, and I'm kind of like, that's okay, like that's okay, like that's I sort of trust that you made that choice. It was weird. I don't quite get it right now, but that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Well, if you're satisfied by that answer, I think we got an interesting understanding of that dream.
I am. That's really fun.
Very cool. Well, you wanted to do another one?
Oh gosh. Well, the other one is sort of a weird time travel dream. Yeah, and there's a lot to pick apart, and I don't know that I I don't know that I remember. I don't know if we have time, but
Oh, that's fine. Are you? I do one thing I'd usually ask, and I completely. I knew I was missing something before when we were chatting. It's like, do you have a hard out? We need to keep it under an hour for you.
I should
Okay.
probably yeah, just because of I have another obligation after this.
Me too. I actually had a tree come down and it's laying partly into the neighbor's yard. And he came over yesterday and said, which, we're going to work on this. And I'm like, yes. So we're waiting for it to stop raining, which almost never happens in Portland. So I should probably go and deal with that too. Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't have rain, do you have a chainsaw?
We've got a little electric one. Yes, it's going to work.
Okay.
I just bought it. Well, it was like, I don't know, 40, $50 at Home Depot. Got a little electric chainsaw. That's necessary. That is, though. This tree was not, God, I don't want to cut it by hand. Oh, that'd be awful. I would take weeks.
Yeah, just chopping away at it with an axe.
Oh, God. That too.
Or a saw, like one of those like push-pull saws, like a hacksaw. No.
I do have one of those, a little gardening. Anyway, so that's probably a good idea. We keep it short. And I'm glad you had a shorter one and we could actually dial it in pretty quick. That was fun.
Yes, that was awesome.
Yeah.
It was really great. Well, thank you so much for having me on, for listening to my strange dreams. It's definitely something that it was one of the dreams I very intentionally didn't tell my husband about it, because I was like, I'm going to talk to Ben about this and then we'll see what he says.
Yeah. Sometimes it's fun to get your own understanding of it but that's one thing you can do is like, okay, so I'm not available every day all the time for everybody. But you can talk to your husband about this kind of stuff, and you can actually show him my videos and kind of show him this discussion with you and say, I want to do this again with you over breakfast. The next time I have a dream, let's talk it out. Let's see what we can come up with.
Well, we talk about our dreams all the time. It's actually one of the reasons why I was so excited to come on to your show, because we talk about dreams all the time. And it's one of the things that I loved about him and fell in love with him about, because he had never was shy about sharing his dreams with me, and like literally his dreams, not like obviously his like, ideas and goals and aspirations, but in this case, like literally, what did you dream about last night? And he's always like, he's kind of a lucid dreamer. So like he seems to know like when he's in a dream. And so like he does stuff in his dreams. So that's kind of fun too, to be like, oh, what did you decide to do?
That is pretty cool. Well, tell him to reach out to me too. We'll do one with him if he's interested. So of course.
Nice.
All right. So by way of wrapping it up, I'm just going to say this has been our friend Helen Cernett from Seattle, Washington. She's a sleep evangelist and host of Sleep List, reading relaxing lists to help you fall asleep. You can find her at sleeplists.com and across multiple of your favorite podcasting platforms, as well as Sleep Lists for You on YouTube. Both of those links in the description below. For my part, would you kindly like, share, subscribe, tell your friends? Always need more volunteer dreamers. 17 currently available works of historical dream literature. The most recent, The Fabric of Dreams by Catherine Taylor Craig. All this and more at BenjaminTheDreamWizard.com, and of course at BenjaminTheDreamWizard.locals.com, building a community there attached to my Rumble account. And just once again, Helen, thank you for being here. It's good talk.
Thank you so much.
And everybody out there, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.